Hey, welcome to Just Cook with Michael. Today, after watching this video, you will know how to make sun-dried tomato pesto. Very simple recipe, could be used with a lot of dishes, could be made in advance. The ingredients for today's dish are sun-dried tomatoes. I'm choosing to make it with almonds. You could use pine nuts, cashews, about 3 ounces of raisins. I'm gonna put those in a little warm water just to kind of plump them up a little bit. That way they'll puree more consistently in the food processor. 2 cloves of garlic, some fresh basil, probably about 2 cups, and extra virgin olive oil, and then some salt and pepper. Super easy. Just put it all in your food processor, blend, taste, adjust with salt and pepper if needed, and you're good to go. This could be used in so many ways. It could be used by itself, like making pasta or gnocchi. Just put it in straight with your pasta, toss it. You could put some butter first in that pasta, then add the sun-dried tomato pesto. That's delicious. You could make like a cream sauce like you would an Alfredo, but finish it with sun-dried tomato pesto. Delicious. If you want to see more of these videos, please subscribe. The sun-dried tomatoes I'm using, they're already packed in oil, so I'm only going to use a 1/4 cup. If your sun-dried tomatoes are dry like the raisins, not packed in oil, then it's good to use a 1/2 cup of olive oil. Also, if your sun-dried tomatoes are dry, kind of like raisins are, it's good to rehydrate them in just a little bit of water. You could put a little bit of water, like a 1/4 cup of water or a couple tablespoons in a little saute pan, bring it to temperature over low heat with the sun-dried tomatoes, and just let that water steep into and rehydrate the sun-dried tomatoes. I rehydrated my raisins a little bit. I put about a tablespoon of water, microwaved it until the water was nice and hot, then put my raisins in there, let them soak for about 5 minutes, then I pour off any excess water. That's just so these blades have an easier time pureeing it. You want to turn the raisins and the sun-dried tomatoes into a paste. So I'll put my raisins in there. My sun-dried tomatoes, which already have oil. My 2 cloves of garlic. You can see how this food processor, I've had this for probably over 20 years. It's just a great food processor. You can see how much power it has. When I turn it on, it just kicks it. So it comes with a few different attachments, but I highly recommend this food processor. See how that looks. That looks pretty good. It's always good to have a few spoons with you to taste as you go along. I like to taste it in different steps. That way you develop your palate. It tastes really good just by itself. The raisins in there really add something to it, just a hint of sweetness. They're delicious. You could use golden raisins too if you like. If you don't have raisins around, maybe substitute with like 2 tablespoons of honey. Almonds. A lot of times pesto recipes, whether it's a basil pesto or sun-dried tomato pesto, will have cheese in it. I always prefer, if I make my pesto, to just put the cheese in at the end when I'm cooking it. Because I'm not sure, sometimes cheese, depending on the application, might burn, or sometimes cheese, when it gets really hot, the oil from the cheese separates out. So any pesto I make, I always prefer to add the cheese just when I'm cooking the final dish, not inside the actual pesto. It looks great. You could see how this is relatively dry. So again, I haven't added in my 1/4 cup of oil yet. If you're using sun-dried tomatoes that aren't packed in oil, you'll probably use a 1/2 cup of oil. Taste that. I'm going to let that go a little more just because there's still some big chunks of almond in there. Now I'm going to add in my 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil. Now I'll put in the basil. Okay, the olive oil is in there. You can see it's a nice consistency, like a little paste. I'm going to taste that. Tastes good. I can tell it needs a little salt, and I'll put some pepper in there. The salt, again, mainly olive oil, is fairly neutral tasting, so it needs salt. So this is kind of the consistency of it. It doesn't run, again, just like a thicker paste. Putting in about a half teaspoon of kosher salt. You could use any salt there. Fresh ground black pepper. We'll want to mix that up some more. All right, I just tried it. I think it needs just a little more salt. I'm going to put in about a 1/4 teaspoon more salt. Pepper tasted fine. Delicious. Give this a try. You could make this in advance. You could freeze it. It'll hold in the refrigerator for a few weeks. Another thing we used to do, and I don't know if it's still a popular thing, but back in hotels when I used to work, if we made something like this, put in, like, sounds like a lot, but like a pound of soft butter into this mixture. It has to be soft. Then puree it, and then it's going to be really soft butter sun-dried tomato pesto mixture. Then you kind of freeze that. You put it on saran wrap, so lay out saran wrap on a flat piece of saran wrap or even parchment paper. Put your sun-dried tomato butter mixture on that saran wrap and roll it up into a log and kind of twist off the ends. And then you freeze that, and then whenever you want a piece of sun-dried tomato, it's frozen, and you just slice off a piece of that sun-dried tomato butter mixture. They call it compound butter. And then again, you could put it on top of chicken, seafood. You could incorporate it by itself straight into a pasta, or you could mix that sun-dried tomato compound butter into a cream sauce like an Alfredo. So it has a lot of different applications, but that's another variation of this. Okay, our mixture's done. I'm just going to put this in a jar for storage in the refrigerator. My next video, I'll show you how to incorporate this into a sauce. Also, other options are, a lot of times I'll put as much of the sun-dried tomato pesto that I think I'll use within about 2 weeks. The rest you could put in little sandwich bags, date them, put them in your freezer to use at any time in the future, or like I said, you can make a compound butter with it. Hey, thanks for joining me this week on this quick video on how to make sun-dried tomato pesto. Now go out and cook for someone you love.